Hey Pat, thanks for joining us today. And we're just gonna pitch our marketing plan here for you. All presentation prepared. I'm Alex, obviously.
I'm Ryan.
I'm Brock.
And then right away we're gonna start off with addressing the issue here, and our issue obviously is fan attendance. You know this, I'm familiar with it. We pulled some alumni, did a survey, just to gather as much information as we could, went over literature, things of that nature, to address the issue as best as we possibly could. And our issue here is attendance, based on some of the information you gave me with the ticketing staff, is our average attendance averages out to about 600. This is excluding outliers such as the regional we hosted here where we added seating, and then US Bank. Going into the Viking Stadium, that caused a little bit of a outlier there, brought in more fans than usual, and that money went to US Bank, as you know, with our partnership with them. Seaver Field's max capacity too is around 1,600 without the without the added seating. There's not a real solid number there. It's just based on how many people with the berm seating, things of that nature. Adding in with standing room, things like that. Can kind of pack it in as much as we want there, give or take, a couple hundred people. So what we're looking at is how do we fill those seats? How do we fill those extra 1,000 seats? Get our attendance average up to 1,000, a little over 1,000. Other Big Ten schools that play well, are in a similar ballpark there in their average attendance. And we want to look also at why attendance has dropped from previous years or been less than satisfactory, at least by our standards, being a top end Big Ten program. And then some of our goals and benefits here. More fans obviously leads to a better atmosphere. We've seen that here now when we've added seating, had a premier game here, been able to add in more seats, and we've seen how the atmosphere can affect a baseball game and how that affects the play on the field and just the pride in the university that it brings in. Students said that the more successful the Gophers sports teams are, the more pride it builds in the university, the more proud they are of it. It obviously brings in more money to the program too. There's more people here selling more concessions, selling more gear, things like that is going to help this program and help it grow. And along with helping it grow, it brings in it's a recruiting pitch. It brings in more recruits. You can get better players, and that obviously adds to a better product on the field, since the coaching staff has been a consistent here for the last 30-some years. When you bring in better players, you'll be able to produce a better product, since in the years past we haven't got big national recruits, and we've been able to produce such a premium product by the Big Ten standards that when we do get the better recruits, the on-field product will just be that much better. And then our interviews here, we had the privilege to sit down with one of our other assistant coaches, favors Brent Gates. Rob was a big fan of him, obviously, and then we talked to Charles Stevenson, Jake Stevenson, and then also Brad Barclay, who Brock has a connection with. And then some of the things they said, the college game, obviously there's more of a connection with the fans. Brent and Brad had the opportunity to play professionally, and they played here collegiately. So the pros with that is we've been able to look at both sides and see where some of that disconnect is a little bit. And obviously in college they were saying how there was more of a connection with the fans, and they said they even almost enjoyed it more because it was such a more personal feel. They were able to choose where they played. For the 4 years they chose to come to Minnesota. When you go professional, obviously you kind of get drafted. You don't always have the opportunity to pick where you play, and how home field advantage does become a huge factor, especially in college. The fans are more on top of you. They're less relegated in the college game. They can be more of a factor and be kind of the 10th man on the field, kind of, so to speak. And so some other questions we asked them is why is do you think baseball is possibly losing popularity, and that's why attendance is an issue here. And he agreed that baseball may be losing some popularity. He said baseball is kind of a niche market where if you're a fan of baseball, you're a huge fan of baseball. There's a tight community where it's kind of a small community where everybody knows each other. Everybody's super into the game, where there's not really the casual baseball fan. The casual baseball fan is kind of dwindling a little bit. Obviously, it's increased a little bit for the playoffs. The playoffs have done well in professional baseball, at least, and I think we saw that at Siebert Field too, when we had the opportunity to host playoff games, where playoff games are a big difference. And then with the current players, Jake obviously is a guy we talked to, and then Brent and Brad also agreed that a student section, like a specific student section, is huge. Getting other college kids involved, having them kind of be most of the atmosphere. The college kids are the ones that set the atmosphere and can make it a true home field advantage. And again, we saw that with the regional, with the big fan base, adding seats, and we've seen a glimpse of what a bigger fan base could do for this program.
So going off of what Alex talked about there, after our interviews, we decided to reach out to the student population, alumni and fans through a survey that we put together. And one thing that we found out from the survey was parking and tailgating is one of the biggest issues leading to the lack of attendance here at Siebert Field. It's not a huge issue for students, just because students are able to walk to the game because the field is on campus. But from what we found out from the alumni and from regular fans is that parking is a major issue. Obviously with the new athletic building that took up a ton of space, and there's an apartment building right next to Siebert Field that takes up space as well for parking. So there's a major lack in that area, and we'll go into what we think will help fix that problem a little bit later, but that is one thing that we did notice from the alumni that was a major issue. The second major issue that we found out from our survey is the promotions. People want more than one reason to attend a game. In recent years, the pace of play has gone up so much that they're incorporating new rules to make the game go faster. For example, there's less time in between innings for teams to warm up, just so fans aren't sitting there waiting for the action to begin. And some things that we listed in our survey were concerts. That was one of the best results that we got, as 72% of students said that they would attend the game. They're more likely to attend the game if there's a post-game concert. I think that is a social aspect that will draw in a lot of people. 53% of the alumni and fans said that would increase their attendance. Another thing that came back was fireworks shows. People do like fireworks, so that's just another way to draw in more attention. And then a couple other ones were just giveaways. If you give away a bobblehead, if you give away free hats, free clothes, obviously people love free stuff, so people are more likely to show up if they're getting something back. So going into ways that we think can fix these problems, one way that we think that we can do this is local partnership. There's a lot of bars on campus that parents, fans may attend before a game. So we want to provide a local partnership, and if you have a ticket, you can go in and maybe get half off of your drink or your food or whatever it is. It's a little incentive for fans to come in a little early, get on campus, find a parking spot, and spend some time with each other before they go to the game. Other things that we want to partner with are transportation. Going with parking. Obviously, parking isn't friendly around the field, so if we can join the Metro Transit shuttle buses, that's one way to get fans from off campus onto campus in an efficient way. Another partnership that we see that could be super beneficial is youth partnerships. If players, we're going to talk about this a little later, but if players go out and reach out to the community, that brings in youth. Obviously, youth players aren't coming by themselves; they have to come with a parent or guardian. So that's increasing as well. And then another way that we see that we can bring the attendance up is community outreach. I know the baseball team, as well as you know, that they reach out to the community through summer camps, meet and greets, just to raise that interest level, create a better brand for the Gopher baseball team that will allow them to gain a connection. I know if fans are connected to a single player, they're more likely to come and cheer that player on, even if they only know one or two players. Maybe that player is their favorite player, and they'll come and watch him and cheer them on.
So another thing that we looked at is getting people to come back, like as in repeat patronage. It's one thing to get a person here for one game, and then it's another to get them coming back for to become a season ticket holder. So one thing that really the literature that we reviewed says is that the better the atmosphere is, the more fan satisfaction there is, and then the better the satisfaction, obviously, the more likely they are to come back for their second time around. So we found that the 5 best ways to increase fan satisfaction in a venue would be to have better food, more alcohol sales, or in this case, alcohol sales in general, then music for the game, whether that's like a post-game concert as we talked about, or whether that's just better music on the loudspeakers, and then hospitality, or making people feel like they're at home here. Whether the workers, I know that they do a great job here, but just in general making them feel like they can bring that to the table for people that come. And then lastly, to create a memorable experience, especially for like families or children. When you make an impact on people and something that they're gonna remember, they're gonna wanna come back again. So then another way that we figured we could reach out is through social media and marketing through that, because for today's case, everyone's kind of a social media, everyone's on it. To get students to the game, you're gonna have to reach out that way. So you can spread the word with new promotions and have better interactions with some of the fans. We've looked through the social media accounts that the team already has, and we've kind of found that they're cliche, and there's nothing to really separate yourself from a brand image or a personality perspective. So like the current Twitter account, it's really generic, and the more fan interactions you have, the more likely you will be able to kind of get that persona in people's heads. And then another idea we had was to have a Gopher Sports app. So the Vikings actually did this recently when they moved to US Bank, is that like have an app at the stadium where people can either get discounts. It would allow for someone to say when they buy a ticket, they go through the app to get the ticket, and then they get a coupon. So when they get to the concession stand, they show this and they get a discount, and this would be great for college students who are obviously on a budget. It would also be able to give people like a point system. So say you come to 5 games, then you get, say, a free burger. Or if you spend $50 in a week or something, that you just get points to redeem these for some good stuff. And lastly, for the future, overall, we think that the app is a great way to start. We'd probably have to talk with like a marketing team or a tech team to help that work throughout the stadium. Promotions for the less appealing games, the games like obviously you don't need to have promotions for the big playoff games here, but for the games in the middle of the summer when people don't really feel like showing up, it's good to use this strategic execution. To have better parking, to have those local partnerships, and to find a way to create a better student section to get these people here. Do you guys have any questions for us?
Yeah, I got one. Can you guys quick touch on alcohol sales? I know you guys did a very good job talking about the recommendation of improving with like the bar tickets. So if you go and use your actual ticket, you get a % off. Have you guys been able to look into the collegiate form on actual ticket sales or alcohol sales at a college game, and how much it's actually helped that college at all, or that nature?
The big thing here is, at least with our administration, is getting it passed. Because right now, the only reason TCF Bank Stadium is selling alcohol is because the Vikings were in there for 2 seasons, I believe, and that's how they in turn had alcohol sales, and they continued it and had certain sections that sold alcohol. So I think it was a pretty general consensus with some of the literature that we looked at that alcohol sales improved college attendance and revenue. It's definitely a boost for them, but it's just a matter of administration deciding whether or not it's able to be executed and whether it can be executed safely. So that's something where administration will need to be involved, but it's something that we see as a huge positive, especially with kind of the baseball culture and how beer is kind of a part of the culture of fanhood in baseball.
What kind of local partnerships would you pursue, like with schools or local teams or anything like that? What kind specifically would you try to pursue?
I think like a major one is just talking to the local restaurants around Dinkytown. There's multiple places where you can go, you can sit down, and you can have food or beverages. As we alluded to earlier, alcohol may raise the attendance, but if say people are going out and they're having a few drinks before because they know they can't have them here, maybe that boosts not so much the attendance but boosts the atmosphere, because we did find in the literature review that the atmosphere is a huge part of getting people back, because fans are more satisfied when they go to a game and say there's more social time in between innings where you're cheering, you're talking to people around you, and then other is just using connections that you have. One, just being, you probably know multiple coaches, maybe friends that teach youth baseball, to maybe not have like so much of a business partnership, but just saying, hey, if you can bring your team to this game, maybe it isn't so much the players that have a great time, maybe it's the parents that have a great time, and maybe they tell their friends, and that's another way that we see could be super beneficial.
This is kind of just like a, not really a question, but just a general statement. I know for you guys, both being hockey players and Box being a former baseball player here, how much is a fan drawn to your actual performance at a game? Because when you get the fans behind you, it's enormous help, and kind of alludes to the other team not doing as well. You guys touch on that?
Yeah, I would definitely say that it creates a great home field advantage. Like when we talked to Brent Gates, he actually said the same thing. He said that when he played in professional baseball, it was a lot easier to go in as an away team in an empty stadium and win, rather than going into a place like Yankee Stadium and having the whole crowd behind them. So I think especially for the team, it would become a big advantage if you're a player and you can get a good atmosphere in the stadium.